Why People Encounter Memories, presented by Alexis Wesley, Cognitive Psychology Term Project. What we'll be discussing: what are memories and what are they for? How are memories encoded through visual encoding, acoustic encoding, and semantic encoding? How memories are retrieved? Why are some memories harder to retrieve? How to improve memory for easier retrieval. So, what are memories and what are they for? Our memory helps make us who we are, whether that means recognizing our loved ones, recalling past joys, or just remembering how to put your clothes on, brush your teeth, tie your shoes, things in that nature. Memory is the chain that connects our past to our present selves. If our memory breaks, we are left confused, lost, and unable to function. A good example of that is as if you had dementia. Some of our memories we process automatically and are stored differently than our more personal or mathematical memories, like our first love or the square root of 25 is 5. Memory is learning that has persisted over time, meaning information that has been stored and in many cases can be recalled. Memory has a large role in our flexible decision making that depends on inference, generalization, and deliberation. This function of memory and decision making is supported by the hippocampus, as you can see here, suggesting that the role of the hippocampus is meant to create a record, as if you're recording yourself so you can look back at it later, to better assist us in our future behavior and decision making. It can offer new insights into why some of our memories are prioritized over the others, why memory loss leads to impaired decision making, and why decisions that are shaped by regret and counterfactual thinking. So, how are memories encoded? The way we get information into our brain is called encoding. This is the input of what we have learned into our memory system. Though there are many types of memory, encoding the main three we'll discuss are visual and acoustic and somatic. So, visual encoding. Visual encoding is being able to convert visual images and understand them as if there were objects. All of your visual encoded memory is temporarily stored in the iconic memory before moving to long term, which is where it'll be stored. We then have acoustic encoding, which is as it sounds, encoding auditory information. This is processed to be understood as an experience. This includes processing the sound, words, and other auditory input for storage and retrieval. Though acoustic encoding does have two different processes. The first process is that information comes into the brain for maybe 1 to 2 seconds. And then the next thing to happen is for it to be rehearsed, which does require to be done for information to be converted into long term. And then, of course, we have somatic encoding. Somatic encoding, which is encoding the sensory, which has a specific meaning or context. So this include things like definitions, special dates, things of that nature. Somatic encoding is actually the easiest to recall other than the shallow encoding of things. When you attach emotions to information, it actually makes it a lot easier for you to be able to recall that information back. A good example is the fact that I know that my boyfriend's birthday is on May 13th, 1994. And the reason that I'm able to remember that is because I have attached the emotion that I have for him to that date. And because of that, I'm able to remember his birthday every year. So making sure that you are able to put emotions to a date or definition or whatever it may be it does make it a lot easier to recall in the future. So, how are memories retrieved? So, now that we know how to encode our memories, or more so, how they're encoded, how the heck do we get them back? We are always retrieving memories throughout the day. Our implicit memories, which is how we talk or ride a bike, are usually done automatically and without us knowing. While our explicit memories, which are our own experiences, such as our first race or first college experience, often needs us to consciously remember that information. It takes us a lot of work to be able to pull memories from long term. Our memories are accessed through three different ways. The first is recall, and then recognition, and then relearning. So when using recall, you can bring up information like a fill in the blank. So if I say blank comes from cows, you should already be able to know that answer, which would be milk comes from cows. And then we have recognition. Recognition is a measure of memory from which a person needs to only identify things from prior knowledge of. So, a good example would be multiple choice. So, if you were to be asked which of the following is not produced by a cow, A, milk, B, egg, C, beef, you would obviously put egg because we all know that cows cannot lay eggs. And then, of course, we have relearning. Relearning is just refreshing your memory on a subject you already know well about. For example, when you're preparing for an exam, you're wanting to reread the things that you already know from previous chapters. A key way for that is to make sure that you are scanning over the things you know, and the things you don't know, you're reading more in depth about because those haven't been stored correctly for retrieval. So, the act of getting that previously stored information out of memory and back into our conscious awareness is actually known as a retrieval. Our ability to retrieve past information from long term is vital to our everyday life. We, as thinking beings, need to be able to retrieve information from memory to be able to make decisions, do daily tasks, or predict the future in some cases. But just retrieving a memory out of long term takes way more than just thinking about it. Memory retrieval is served by retrieval cues. So if you are to leave, as if you are to leave little breadcrumbs to that memory, so it's easier for you to pick your way to that memory when recalling it. The more retrieval cues that you leave while storing it long term, the easier it will be for you to retrieve that memory down the road when you need it. This type of activating association non-consciously is called priming, or memoryless memories. So, memoryless memories are information you didn't know you had that is brought up, like the fact that did you know that penguins have kneecaps? Completely useless information, but it's something that I just happen to know and will bring up. So, priming is how you are able to get your mind going and is often referred to as a context dependent memory. So, why are some memories harder to retrieve? Forgetting is an all too common thing for us, which is why that us as humans have created things to help us with our memories, which is like sticky notes, flashcards. We have iPhone reminders. We tell friends and family, hey, don't let me forget this. We have all these other types of ways to help us remember things that we know are going to be hard for us to remember. So, why do we have this issue on retrieving this information from long term with all of these things that aid us? And the best person to tell you about this is a really cool guy named Hermann Ebbinghaus. Hermann Ebbinghaus was a German psychologist who was one of the first to do a study on memory, and more importantly, forgetting memory. Ebbinghaus would use himself as a test subject in his own experiments by testing his memory using a 3-letter nonsense syllabus. The reason behind the nonsense words was so that he couldn't draw from prior knowledge. In order to test for new information, Ebbinghaus tested his memory for periods of time ranging from 20 minutes to 31 days. His tests led to discovery of how fast information actually leaks from our brains. Not literally, figuratively, but within a month, Ebbinghaus had forgotten around 50% of everything that he originally learned from his test. Our brains have a very, very strict use it or lose it policy when it comes to information being stored. So, how do we go about better storing our memories so that we can recall them later? And the best way to explain it is to give you the example of plants. If you want to grow a plant, you need to make sure that you water it on a daily or weekly schedule, it's getting enough sunlight, you're taking care of it. Or if you don't, as if you don't water it and you don't put in sunlight, it's going to shrivel up and die. And our brains work the exact same way. If you don't keep feeding it that information on a regular basis, it will disappear. Ebbinghaus' forgetting curve was able to reveal that there was a connection between forgetting and time, meaning the more time goes by without us rehashing into that information, the faster we're going to forget about it and not be able to recall it as fast. Meaning the factors on how the information was learned and how frequently it's rehearsed over and over and over again, or even putting it into your own words to make it make a little bit more sense. Now we move into how to improve memory for easier retrieval. So I know having a photogenic mind is really great and all, but for the rest of us mortals, we have to rely on other different ways to help us jog our memory and help us be able to store that memory into long term and leaving those breadcrumbs to get back. So one of the first things you can possibly do is cardio. I know no one wants to hear that, but just getting your blood pumping and flowing is able to send up that up to the hippocampus and really feed onto your brain so that it can work right and produce all of that memory recall, which it does take a lot of energy to do. So definitely get out there, do a jog, jumping jacks, anything to get your blood moving and pumping is a really good source for your brain to get active. Another good way to improve your memory is making sure you're eating good snacks, and I mean healthy snacks. Let's keep it healthy. So the really cool thing about your hippocampus is it actually feeds off of insulin. So you're wanting to make sure that the snacks that you feed upon have high glucose and high insulin intake, so that it's feeding into your hippocampus, which is where your long term is stored. So you want to make sure that you're feeding your body those healthy snacks so that it's way easier for you to recall. And then, of course, there's the movement of your hands. So another really good way of you encoding into your long term is to handwrite your notes. So whenever you're studying or listening to a lecture, make sure to handwrite your notes. The movement of your hands is a great way for your brain to encode the information. Due to you having to relate that information, write it down, and be able to analyze it into your own words. So again, not only are you hearing it, which is through your auditory encoding, so that acoustic encoding, you're interpreting it, you're putting it into your own words, and then you're writing it down. That's all sorts of ways for you to be able to encode that memory. Even typing. Oh my gosh, I didn't mean to do that. Even typing is another way for you to encode that information that you're learning. And lastly, you should be making sure to take time for yourself while studying. Making sure to spread it out, your material, into more bit-sized portions. So every day for an hour, which is a really good goal, study, for that full hour, and then give your brain that time to process what you've just learned. Cramming it all in within 3 hours of an exam or test is actually the worst way, because you are cramming all of this information and not giving your brain enough time to really digest all that information. That brings us to the end of my presentation. I want to thank you so much for listening in. This here is the referral page. I highly recommend checking out all of these references. They have amazing information if you want to learn more about memory. And again, I just want to thank you so much for sticking through. Hope you have a good day and stay safe.